Shalom. I want to give all praises, honors, and glories to Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem, Rakakadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and salutations to the whole flock. This is your brother, I am Noah Allah from GMS Chicago, and coming back to you with another lesson. Alright, it'll just be a quick one about, taking care of your body, alright, taking care of your health. And yeah, we're living in some serious times, and the spirit has been out to where the Lord wants us brothers to be in shape. All right, the Lord wants us to change our diet. All right, because when we're eating unhealthy and shit, when you're eating and consuming all these fast foods, these unnatural foods and shit, it really does fuck up your gut real bad. Right, it fucks up your focus. Right, you start to feel sluggish and shit, and and you really have like no energy, right, throughout the day. But nonetheless, all right, I'm gonna touch on here on this fried food. All right, why is fried food harmful to your health? And this is pretty straightforward. All right, me personally, to the best of my ability, all right, at most I haven't like eaten any fried food so far. All right, because now I realize what that does to your body, and whenever I eat fried food again and shit, the very next day, your gut starts to feel like shit. All right, now you don't even want to feel like doing anything. All right, and so I stopped eating fried food from the beginning of this year. All right, because I started to realize that it caused some sort of pain in my gut. Right, so and me personally, I work at a job where I'm making fried chicken and grilled chicken and shit. I don't eat that shit. I don't eat them tenders. I don't eat them chicken nuggets. I don't even eat any of that shit. All right, because why? All that shit at the end of the day is being fried into canola oil, right? Even them potato wedges and shit, all fried into that canola oil. And canola oil, seed oils in general, all right, it can really fuck up your gut, right? It says fried foods are high in calories. That's true, all right. Especially the food here, in America, which is all defiled and shit. All right, you look at the average American out here and shit, they're completely out of shape. Right, they look like shit. Right, there are, a lot of them, that are obese and whatnot. A lot of them are on the brink of dying before the age of 40 or 50. Right, because their gut is all fucked up because of all the unnatural foods that they've been eating. Right. It says fried foods are often high in trans fat, and that's basically what fried foods, fast foods basically does to your body. Right. You got individuals out there, that want to get in shape and want to look more, more swole and all that, but bulking, all right, I want to suggest that, all right, if you're gonna bulk, at least bulk clean, all right, but dirty bulking, eating whatever and shit is a bad idea. All right, that is the quickest way to gain weight. All right, and that could really fuck up your health. And me personally, I'm, I eat clean to the best of my ability. All right, because I'm Mexican. All right, I'm Mexican. I eat beans. Basically, I eat stuff at home. All right. even pulse, which is, your vegetations and shit. All right, you gotta have your vegetations, especially and shit. All right, I'm starting to eat more carrots now because now I've started to realize that with me, all right, I gain a lot of bad skin conditions, all right, um, such as acne, all right, and I have a lot of acne and shit. And I started to realize something, as I'm consuming carrots, because, I'm getting in the habit of consuming carrots a day now. And I started to see slightly of a change, in my skin. I'm starting to see that, my acne, the redness of my acne, my acne scarring is starting to fade away a little bit. And yeah, vegetation is especially important, right? You gotta have your vegetations, right? Your salads, or whether it be carrots and whatnot, right? That's natural foods right there, the herbs, right, which the Lord, gave us. But yeah, with fried foods, you gain heart disease, diabetes and shit, obesity, right? And obviously, fried food is fucking harmful in general. I don't even consume fries anymore, it's just me. I don't consume fries anymore. I don't consume, tenders anymore, nuggets and shit. The fryer, because, when working at a place, in the kitchen and shit, I started to realize that, with the oils, of course, you're not supposed to be consuming canola oil at the end of the day, but that oil doesn't get changed out, right? It doesn't get filtered, all right? So as the oil in these restaurants and shit, they're being used, while filtering, right? Because really, after 3 or 4, 5, 6 drops or whatnot, you're supposed to filter the oil in these restaurants and shit, but a lot of niggas are lazy and shit, so they don't change the oil. But really, at the end of the day, you shouldn't even be consuming fried foods, especially in the times that we're in right now. All right. Lord is pushing a vibration, to get on your health. All right. Make sure your health is straight. Work out. I hit the, at least, hit the gym for at least, 4 times a week. 4 days out of the week. All right. 4 days a week. Because what in the scriptures, so it tells you, 1 Timothy 4:8, for bodily exercise profiteth little, but godliness is profitable unto all things. And yeah, we have the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures, right? And one of my elders would say that, exercising is not a carnal thing, all right? Is really beneficial to your body, all right? And and one of the most important exercises, all right, is running, all right? You could jog, you could walk. That is one of the most important exercises, all right? Especially in the times that we're coming into, all right? Because now, a lot of people are about to go broke. A lot of people are soon not going to be able to afford gas and shit. All right, we're in an economic depression, literally. All right, the beginning stages of an economic depression, and these people are about to go nuts. All right, and these people are losing their jobs right now and shit because of this government shutdown. All right, maybe some of these people are literally walking to work and shit because they can't afford shit because of the cost of living is too expensive and shit. But yeah, bodily exercise does profit it. All right, it's good. Right? You gotta do these things. But it says, but godliness is profitable unto all things, and first and foremost, getting this word, right? Because uh, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures, right, is can save your life. It says, having promise of the life that is now is, and of that which is to come. This is a faithful saying and worthy of all acceptations. But you look at the unhealthy oils and shit. I always look at the oils. Of course, all our food is defiled and shit, right? The majority of our food is gonna have mainly canola oil and shit. But hey, our food here in Babylon, our food here on this and in Esau's wicked kingdom, right, is all defiled, all right. But to the best of your ability, all right, stay away from these unhealthy foods, right? Because it could really take a toll on your body, all right. But watch out for all these seed oils, all right. The common one is of course canola oil. You got soybean oil, you got cottonseed oil, corn oil, all right, sesame oil, sunflower oil, all right, grapeseed oil, palm oil and shit, all right. Try to stay away from that shit to the best of your ability. But stay away from fried foods in general, right? But now let's go into the scripture that talks about the pulse, your vegetation, right? But here's I'm gonna start with I'm gonna just start with 11. It says First Daniel 11, 1 and 11. It says, then Daniel said to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. And you go into that word pulse, all right, it basically is, your vegetation, all right, vegetables, that's so. That's what he's basically is talking about. All right. Yeah, so now we know what pulse is. But it says, then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat of the portion of the king's meat. All right, and here it showed that Daniel and his companions, all right, they looked healthier, all right, more nourished than the men who was eating the king's meat, right? It says, thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. And as for these 4 children, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. But nonetheless, the point here, all right, in this lesson is that your vegetables, right? You gotta eat them vegetables, right? Because I look at somebody as a prime example, right? It's a girl and shit, and I look at her and shit, and I heard that whenever they give her fruit and shit, she just holds that in her hand, right? She doesn't want to eat it. I want to know why? It's because she has parasites in her and shit, right? Them parasites in you, they want you to consume the unhealthy shit. All right. So when you look at, when you're out of shape, all right, when you look at the vegetations or like fruit, right, you tend not want to eat those things. You tend to go along with your cravings more. All right, you tend to go along with your unhealthy cravings more, and now you're just fucking your body up. All right, then parasites are fucking your body up. And what you gain all these sorts of health effects, all right, heart strokes, whatever, diabetes, all right. And next thing you know, all right, you're laying on the floor dead, all right. And hey, we don't know when the Lord is going to return, but in the meantime, all right, we gotta get our health straight, right? Well, one of the things that I started to realize that those vegetables, right, they give you a hell of energy, all right. Bought a pack of pumpkin seeds. They didn't have the shell on them, all right. But I bought a pack of pumpkin seeds, and I consumed that. I consumed a good portion in one day. And I started to realize when I was at the gym and shit, I was hitting the ab workout, the crunches, and I put weight on it, all right, with that machine. All right, I did ab crunches, and I started to realize like, what the fuck, like it feels light, right? The ab workout with especially the weight I was doing, which is 50, all right, it felt light. So I'm like, wait a minute, is this machine broken? So I added another weight, and it felt light as fuck too. So I used the other machine, and I started to realize like, damn, them pumpkin seeds, all right, they generally give men a lot of testosterone. Right? You'd be surprised that some of the vegetables that you be consuming, all right, gives you a lot of testosterone. Uh, fuck. So like, what I meant to say is that fuck. Well, no, yeah. Pumpkin seeds benefit men by supporting prostate health, improving sperm quality, and boosting heart, immune, and sleep and health. I remember looking at a video about pumpkin seeds and shit, and it's really good, especially when you're about to exercise and shit. It gives you a lot of energy. Yes, pumpkin seeds provide a lot of energy because they are rich in nutrients and support energy production like protein, healthy fats, and carbohydrates, along with essential minerals such as magnesium, iron, and zinc. Unlike sugary snacks, the energy from pumpkin seeds is sustained due to the fiber content, which helps prevent a crash. But nonetheless, not just pumpkin seeds, but your vegetables in general and shit, right? You know, uh, I would eat the vegetables off my plate and shit, even if they were, I would always at least have, fruit or veggie, if I'm going to have meat, all right? But nonetheless, I hope this lesson was edifying, and I want to give all praises, honors, and glories to Yahweh Bashem, Yahushai, and Shalom.